Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Now today I wanted to have a look at some of the wealthiest players in old school RuneScape. Now as this game has been out for over 7 years now, players have managed to accumulate a serious amount of wealth. Now in general it's done either by staking, merching, PvP, PvM, maybe skilling, but really how rich do people get in old school RuneScape? Well, we all know there are billionaires. I'm sure we've all probably seen a picture of someone who has 10 billion. But after that, how far does it go? 100 billion, 200 billion, 500 billion, or are there even trillionaires in old school RuneScape? Now because of the nature of this type of video, the richest players most likely are not going to be very forthcoming about it, and for good reason. Putting yourself out there with that much wealth is kind of risky, as we all know that not everyone has a complete faith in Jagex's account security. On top of that, another reality is that most players who have that type of wealth are going to be real world trading it, and probably won't keep that for long. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's get started. Now first up here I thought I would actually have a look at an Ironman bank. Now the actual GP total is going to be less than a lot of these other ones, but getting wealthy on an Ironman is harder than the main account, and the bank picture we have today is actually from none other than MMORPG. MMORPG is well known for being one of the wealthiest Ironmans in the entire game. And it's so impressive for a variety of different reasons. Now, I mean, first up here, leveling up your account, unlocking higher level moneymakers is just a lot harder. Two is there's no trading, no staking, which is another big way people make money. So as of the end of 2019, Curtis actually had a bank valued at around 11.6 bill, which is by far the wealthiest Ironman I've ever seen. Now, as he is an Ironman, the wealth is going to be spread out between a ton of different items, but the bulk of it comes from his max cash in platinum tokens, and his very impressive gear tab, which includes an Elysian, which everyone knows about that struggle, 2 Arcanes, 2 Spectrals, 1 of every God Sword, a Dragon Warhammer, loads of Dragon items, Ranger boots, raids items. I mean, just pretty much everything you could possibly need in the entire game is here. One of the most impressive banks in the entire game, and definitely one of the best, if not the best, Ironman banks in RuneScape. Okay, next up here we have a picture I found on the Bank Tabs subreddit, and the title was The Bank of a RuneScape Staker or something like that, and I was 95% sure the bank was going to be empty because that's just the way that, well, RuneScape humor works, I guess. But I was actually very pleasantly surprised. In the picture there's actually an anonymous player with a 100 bill bank. Now this player is pretty obviously a staker, currently has 57 bill in platinum tokens, a max cash stack, along with a ton of different items here, notably 20 twisted bows, which is going to be worth roughly 20 bill, 8 arcanes, 9 Elysians, which is going to be close to 8 or 9 bill, and a ton of other goodies as well. Now realistically, the only way for someone to get 100 billion in old school RuneScape is to get lucky staking. For example, if we compare that to MMORPG's bank video, he's been working on that account for years, and that has only brought him 10 bill, not even a tenth of this. The point I'm trying to make here is it's nearly impossible to get this level of wealthy without staking because just not enough time has elapsed for someone to actually do it through legitimate means. Alright, next up here we have a picture of a player who won probably one of the biggest stakes in old school RuneScape history. Maybe not the biggest, but the biggest one that has been documented. This player managed to win a 100 bill stake. And we can see here that the dual arena tax was in place, and a 1% tax means that the tax alone was 1 billion GP off this. Now, this is really where we don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes. This is kind of what just surfaces. A 100 bill stake is massive. Is there bigger stakes out there? Possibly. We just don't really have that accurate of information. For example, one stat I would like to bring your attention to is actually from the data stream back in February of 2019. Now that was a couple of months after the dual arena tax was implemented, and at the time they stated that 4.2 trillion GP had been claimed as tax by the dual arena at that point, but the individual player who paid the most in taxes had been 26 billion. And assuming that they got taxed at a 1% tax rate, that means the total amount of GP that person had staked throughout the 6 months, it was actually 2.6 trillion. Now that doesn't really tell us exactly how much wealth they had at one time, how much gold they ended up with, because we don't know how many of these stakes they ended up winning. We don't know if one person made a 1.3 trillion GP stake, almost definitely not. or 1,300 1 billion GP stakes. But still, I find that tidbit of information really interesting, and it just goes to show you how rich some players are out there, kind of in the background, unknown. Now next up here we have a pretty well-known picture from another staker by the name of God Faerell. Now this is actually an old picture from the end of 2015, and that's something you really want to keep in mind. This player is showing 82 billion GP in platinum tokens. That is ridiculous. I mean, there is a picture of him with more, but it's a more recent picture. Considering the date, which I think was October 2015, the amount of money that he has, even when you compare it to some of these other images that have more money but are way more recent pictures. A couple of days before this picture was posted, ModMac actually released how much GP was in the game, and that was 4.4 trillion. Which means at the time this player had roughly 2% of the total wealth in the entire game, which is kind of ridiculous. Okay, next up here we have another very well-known player, and that is SparkMac, who back at the beginning of 2019 had a bank value of roughly 150 billion GP. Now I'm not sure if he has that anymore, but let's have a look at his bank. Now the biggest things here are of course the 100 million platinum tokens, which translates to 100 bill just right there. Which is absolutely crazy. I mean, SparkMac again made most of his money from staking. Other things we have here are the 16 Elysian Spirit Shields, probably worth at least 10 bill right there. 15 Arcanes, 2 Twisted Bows, 2 Sights of Viter. He has a bunch of God Swords. It looks like 250 Armadil God Swords, and pretty much just multiples of every rare item in the game. Okay, next up here we have a player by the name of Baer, and during one of the SparkMac streams, he kind of flexed, or by accident showed his entire stack of Elysian Spirit Shields, which at the time was 113 Elysians worth 37 bill. Now this picture was from a time when Elysians were not worth nearly as much. Now if that player still had 113 Elysian Spirit Shields today, it would be worth about 100 bill. And it kind of just makes you wonder, so this player showed 113 Elysians, is that their entire bank? Probably not. That'd be kind of weird to just have that. It's possible this player only bought Elysians to stake with and their bank isn't that big, but really who knows, it could be 2, 3, 4 times bigger. Because that amount of Elysians is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, next up here we have another infamous picture by a staker named BTC. Now this player was banned a few times, I think, for real world trading. I mean, what else would it be? It's kind of hard to imagine somebody with this much wealth not at least attempting to real world trade it. Now in this picture here, we can see the player has 109 million platinum tokens, which is crazy. Now in the trade offer as well, there are 4 Elysians as well as quite a few pieces of 3rd Age, including 3rd Age robes, 3rd Age kite shields, 2 Kodai wands, 2 3rd Age cloaks, which are worth quite a bit, and 8 Armadil crossbows, probably bringing the total wealth in this picture up to maybe closer to 115 bill, which is quite a lot. Now we know that this player ended up getting banned, so all of this wealth was actually seized by jagex, so no longer exists. This picture is a couple of years old now as well, so we don't really know what happened to him, but at one point he was one of the richest people in the entire game. Now next up here is probably the biggest wealth picture I've ever seen by an infamous staker named Fishy. Now this picture is back from October of 2019, and let's have a look here. The obvious thing here is 415 million platinum tokens, which equates to 415 bill, which is the most money I have seen on one account ever. Not to mention they have about 15 Elysian Spirit Shields, which brings the total wealth of this picture up to 430 mil. Now how does a player get this rich? Well, obviously it is going to be staking. Now how does a player get this lucky? Well, partially I would imagine it's luck, and partially it's because they own their own dicing website, and that is probably how they fund all of their stakes, and eventually you're just going to get lucky, and that's pretty much how someone gets close to 500 billion in old school RuneScape. Now the question still stands, are there going to be richer people out there? And I want to say almost definitely yes. While I was doing research for this video, I've seen text conversations and people confirming that they've seen over 1 trillion GP in wealth on one account, but there just wasn't proof for that, so I didn't decide to put it in the video. But really, there's no doubt in my mind that at the very least, a giant bot network, a giant staking network, would probably have at least 1 trillion or more spread out between a bunch of different accounts. It really just doesn't make sense to keep all of the wealth on one account, because that's just like putting all your eggs in one basket. That's very risky. And considering that pretty much anyone this wealthy is going to consider at the very least real world trading, their accounts could be banned as well, which is just another good reason to spread out the wealth. So yes, I think there are trillionaires out there. No, I don't think anyone just has a trillion GP and platinum tokens just chilling on one account. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Now I'm definitely open if anyone wants to try to prove me wrong here. If you want to send me an anonymous bank picture, or you have a bank picture of one of the wealthiest 1% in the game, I would be interested to have a look at it. Do I think anyone's going to take me up on that offer? Maybe not. But I'm still just putting it out there if anyone's interested. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I would always appreciate it if you leave the video a like, and I'll see you next time.